Two, one, two, three, four.
This is Skip Melville. He was in the Marines and fought during the Vietnam War. Skip enlisted in April of 1966.
Graduated from high school. I was going to El Camino Community College up in Torrance. I went to Junipero Serra High School in Gardena. Graduated from there. In 1965 and 66, I went into to study. I was also working at a grocery store. Safeway is the name of it, and it's now Safeway. I'm the eldest of 8 children. So I have 6 brothers and a sister.
Many soldiers who enlisted had been working small minimum wage jobs. Most soldiers were just graduating high school. Skip grew up in a very large family with 8 children. Skip's older brother also went to war. Sadly, he passed away.
I enlisted. I enlisted in April of 1966. I enlisted, honest to goodness, in the Marine Corps anyway. There were 2 reasons. First, the draft was in high gear. Lots and lots of people were being drafted. It made no difference for many of us whether we had college deferments or not. If you were 18 or 19 years old, you could be drafted. And I had a girlfriend in high school whose dad served in the Marine Corps during World War II. To impress him and to impress her, I selected the Marine Corps. And at the time, the Marine Corps offered an enlistment that would allow me 2 years of active duty service and 4 years of reserve. And then I actually went into boot camp in June of that same year, 1966, and got out of there. And
Men were young, and similar to Skip, the average age was 19 years old. They drafted 2.2 million American men between 1964 and 1973. Skip knew he would get drafted anyways, so he decided to enlist first. Also, if he enlisted, he was able to choose his branch and years of service.
So did you just send those to all your siblings, or did you send them to like your parents?
my mom and dad, mostly my mom. And there's a few in there. I don't have all of her letters. There's a few in there from her to me, but not many.
All Marine soldiers would receive a little red notebook to write their letters to their families. Skip mainly sent letters to his mother.
And then I actually went into boot camp in June of that same year, 1966, and got out of there. And in August, then I went to training. I learned to be a machine gunner at Camp Pendleton. And once I learned how to be a machine gunner, the Marine Corps, in its infinite wisdom, sent me to Hawaii. So that's where I was for about 9 months before I went to Vietnam.
When you were there, was the Marines like kind of what you expected, or were you more surprised by it?
Well, I had heard many stories. Some of the questions here had to do with other family members who were in the armed services. My dad had been in the Navy during World War II. And actually, he had been at Pearl Harbor when Pearl Harbor was bombed by the Japanese in 1941. And he was at the last battle of the Pacific in Okinawa at the end of the war. And so I got to hear stories from him and some of his friends growing up. As a family of 8 kids, 7 boys and 1 girl, we would play guns and war and all that kind of stuff, cowboys and Indians growing up. So I had an idea of what some military aspects were, but I didn't have any idea what the Marine Corps was like. I didn't even actually find out what the Marine Corps was like until after I got out of boot camp. If you've ever been yelled at for 20 hours a day, well, boots and recruits are yelled at for 20 hours a day. There is nothing that a human being can do right in the Marine Corps, at least the first couple of days. We can't walk correctly, we can't talk correctly, we can't brush our teeth correctly, we can't eat correctly. There was nothing we could do right. And the idea behind that...
Training is the most physically and mentally difficult among the uniformed services. They were responsible for learning weapon handling, discipline, and other skills. At the end of boot camp, the soldiers would have to perform a fitness test.
Skip attended boot camp at Camp Pendleton, where he learned how to operate a machine gun. Then he was sent to Hawaii.
And that's about it.
Okay. I'm almost,
All the stuff you have.
almost done.
Should we get another desk? Whoa.
And then, this is what you guys get to wear for a few minutes each. This is actually not the one, but this is very similar to the helmet I wore in Vietnam for 10 months. Put it on your head. Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's so heavy.
Put it on your head.
And you pretty much haven't taken it off?
It was dangerous to not have it on.
So heavy.
People would shoot at me.
Cool. Oh my gosh.
Now it's a two-piece design.
Where's the second piece?
The second piece is
Oh,
the
it
side.
protects the back of your neck?
No, that comes out. The liner comes out. So it was actually, we called it a steel pot.
Oh, whoa.
Because it is a steel pot. And you can cook in that.
That's incredible. And
And do other things with it. You can cook with it. You can dig a hole with it if you need to. And that was what made it stay on your head.
that's so like smart. That was like
Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about me. You guys have
Gear including jackets and helmets were made to protect the soldiers from sun, bugs, and were very absorbent in case they got wet. During the Vietnam War, all helmets were made to be multi-purpose. They could use them to cook or dig and obviously be worn as protection. Due to the dangers in Vietnam, Skip rarely took his helmet off for nearly 10 months. Skip referred to his helmet as a steel pot because he often used it to cook.
hour or 20 minutes or whatever it was. It was to verify that somebody's awake and somebody's underrated.
Yeah.
That was primarily it. So it must have been 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning. The ambush, they usually picked up and started moving away around 4 o'clock in the morning so that they could be back at the wire before, just as it started to get light in Vietnam. So it must have been around 3 o'clock in the morning. And if you did not get somebody voluntarily clicking to you, you were supposed to click them on the hour. So 5 minutes could pass and now you got to click your end of the microphone. So it's past 3 o'clock and I'm doing this. I'm waiting for a response, and the response would be just another couple of clicks, right? I'm awake, I'm well, everything's fine. Click, click. No click, click. Then I hear, I can't do anything. Well, you're not supposed to talk on the radio. So I, being stupid and young, why? There's a tiger behind.
No.
Oh my goodness.
Probably as far away as that desk is from you. A mama tiger.
Crazy.
Wow.
And he could hear her breathing behind him.
I would have started crying.
And he's trying not to make noise, but he whispers.
There's only been 2 reported deaths by tigers in Vietnam, but many close calls. Skip would never set up at the ambush. He would always stay back at camp, keeping in contact with them, using the clicker.
A football game in Vietnam at Quezon. And it was us against them, right? I think it was officers against enlisted. And we played this game. We actually talked about it for about a week. And we started to play the game. And it was on an open area behind our fighting positions in a sort of semicircle. And it was big enough that we had almost 100 yards. Fairly flat. There was some rocks and stuff, so we had to go through the week before and clean all the rocks out and fill in whatever holes there might have been there. And as we were playing the game, it started to rain. So it became a mud bowl in a hurry. And have you ever played in the mud? Isn't it great to play in the mud? Just so much fun.
So fun.
And it's fun when it's muddy and raining because you're getting some of it taken off of you, but it's getting slicker and slicker and messier. Just a blast. And then they started shooting at us. Oh yeah, there's 50 guys out in the open. The bad guys were in the hills above us. We had to cancel that football game.
To keep busy, Skip and his soldier friends would play games like football or mudsliding.
There's 7,700 square miles of forest covering Vietnam land area.